Hey everyone, Tom Butwin here. This is Everything Mayer, your favorite John Mayer fan podcast. And this week, we are going to dive into something that we normally don't dive into on the show very deeply, and that's gear. Now, I'm not going to go into the type of deep dive that some of the great Instagram accounts and YouTube channels do on John Mayer's gear. If you're looking for that type of stuff, Justin Jeske here on YouTube, John Mayer Gear on Instagram, first stop for both of those platforms. Those guys really know what's going on, and I'm excited to see what they have to say about what we're going to talk about today. But before we do that, and by the way, if you're not a guitar player, that's okay. We're going to make this interesting for everybody because that's why I'm talking about it. Normally, I wouldn't talk about something like this, but I think there's enough of an interesting thing here to even entertain and inform those of you who are not total gear nuts with Silver Skies and deluxe reverbs over our shoulders. So before we do that, though, please do consider joining the channel here on YouTube if that's where you are watching or listening. That helps me immensely, and you will be joining a growing community of fans and people who are getting some bonus content and will be part of some upcoming live streams where we can interact more directly in a live manner. So before we waste any more time with the introductions, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. And really, the best way to do this is to go to John Mayer's Instagram, and we're going to listen and watch. Well, listen if you're just listening to this. Watch, though, if you are watching this, his latest post. I'm going to let it play, then we'll read the caption, and then we're going to talk all about why this is so cool. All right, so you get the idea. What are we looking at here, though? Well, let's read what John actually says. File under, quote-unquote, whatever it takes. This shipping crate stashed behind some road cases in the loading dock of Sphere, Vegas, houses a couple of my guitar amps that are mic'd up and being heard with the rest of Dead & Company. If you happen to be walking through, you've got no choice but to hear it. Bonus points if you can name that song. And, of course, the astute comment section has called out Knocking on Heaven's Door, Bob Dylan tune that Dead & Company does such a wonderful job of covering. And you could see John Mayer gear right there in the comments. Like I said, John Mayer solos and all that Mimi. I mean, like just all these Silver Sky guy, Tomo. I mean, like it's a veritable who's who in the Mayer verse in this comment section, as it should be. But let's talk about why this is so cool and why it's so interesting. So, we've seen pictures, tons of pictures of John and the band playing at the Sphere, as I'm told. Don't say the Sphere, you're supposed to say Sphere. Kind of pretentious, but whatever. You've seen them playing at Sphere. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I have to say the Sphere. I apologize. It's going to be the Sphere. So you've seen them playing at the Sphere, and there's amps on stage. So for you guitar players, let me just back up for a second for those of you who are not. So guitar players, hang on one moment. Normally, the way things work, just in whatever average everyday life, is you take your electric guitar, you plug it into your electric guitar amp, and it amplifies it and makes sound for you. Now, you take that into an arena, and it's not loud enough, so you put a microphone in front of it, and then that microphone takes it and amplifies it with the rest of the band. Drums that have microphones, bass amps that have a microphone or a direct output coming out of the back, or a piano, whatever the case may be, to a mixing board into the big speakers that you see and hear at your typical concert. Now, that's all well and good when you have a normal setup, a normal band, a normal venue. But there are now circumstances, there's always been circumstances, but there are now ways that you can get around having a real guitar amplifier. And this is a hotly debated topic in the guitar community. So trust me when I tell you. They've created some pretty amazing things called modelers in some cases, or plugins if you're on a computer, that can emulate the sound of a real tube amp. Now, that little box on top of this amplifier is kind of like the halfway point. It takes the amplifier portion of this and bypasses the speaker and then digitizes the speaker, basically. So it's like you have your foot in one world and then another foot in the other world. But you can go totally fake too, into like a little computer basically that looks like a foot pedal or some other type of box, and it recreates the sound of what most guitar players love, which is a vintage style tube amplifier with these glowing glass light bulb looking things in the back. It's very old technology, but it's why someone like John Mayer sounds so good. So the hotly debated portion is, well, how could someone who has such amazing guitar tone rely on something fake? And Mayer normally doesn't. The only times that you really see him playing into quote unquote something fake is when it's not practical for him to have an amplifier. For example, when he played with Ed Sheeran and opened for Ed Sheeran, well, he played acoustic for the opening portion, but when he joined him on stage, look at Sheeran's stage, there's nowhere for a real amplifier up there. Plus, he's only up there for one song. So they brought an Axe Effects fractal, like, floor modeler thing. And it sounds fine. It sounds good. When you have such a great player like John Mayer, it doesn't matter what he plugs into. It sounds great no matter what. But when you go to the Sphere, as we've talked about on previous episodes, the sound system is not the same. Okay, so there are a lot of circumstances, like if you go to see a Broadway production, if you go to see someone like Josh Groban or Andrea Bocelli, where it's like you have an orchestra on stage, and you can't have a lot of volume on stage. When Mayer plays, his amps are cooking. They're loud. Joe Bonamassa, super loud. You know, these guys who are known for the guitar tone, if you stood next to them on stage, whether, you know, it's loud. It's loud because that's when guitar amplifiers sound good. Unfortunately, when you go to the Sphere, we've noticed it's not your typical setup. Obviously, it's a giant globe that you're sitting at, and you don't see any speakers. You are relying on speakers that are behind that screen that are meant to kind of span the width of all the different types of events that they're going to have there. Movies, multimedia presentations, concerts. Okay, so because of that, you can't have a ton of volume coming off that stage. And the drums are, if you notice, are all behind glass to help control some of that. There are amplifiers on stage. The piano is technically a keyboard, so that's just plugged in direct. You're not getting much acoustic sound from that. And most bass players, even if they have a real amplifier on stage, they have what's called a direct line out of that amplifier into the mixing console. So they're not relying on that amplifier to fill up the bass sound in whatever venue they're playing in if it's big enough. So what happens when you're John Mayer and you have to have those amazing guitar tones? You are known for guitar amplifiers. People actually come and take pictures and look at amps and talk all about them. Sometimes Mayer even puts them behind a little curtain because he doesn't want people to know what he's using, which is really cool. But if you come to John Mayer and you say, look, John, you can't have all that volume on stage here at the Sphere because it's going to upset the balance of what we're trying to do in this room. And I can't turn you down if your amplifiers on stage are so loud. Okay, well, you could do a couple different things. You could say, well, that's okay. I won't use a real amplifier. I'll use one of those modelers that I was talking about before that he used with Ed Sheeran, or he uses when he plays on his Sirius XM Life with John Mayer channel. That's not going to work for this particular band, and it's not going to work for John Mayer. And my guess is it probably doesn't work for Bob Weir either. So then you're left with, well, okay, I could bring my amps on stage but turn them down. Again, non-guitar players. Guitar players are rolling their eyes right now. But with these amps, there's kind of a sweet spot. You got to get it up to that sweet spot. This is a small amplifier. This is a 65 Deluxe Reverb reissue, and it's only 22 watts. And I can tell you, if it goes up over 3, it's ear-splittingly loud. Ear-splitting, okay? And humble brag for a moment. I've had that on stage, huge outdoor stages, 3,000 to 4,000 seat theaters. It's too loud, even in those stages, for the most part. So you can imagine when you've got amps on stage that are much larger and much louder, like what John Mayer uses in a lot of cases, it becomes unmanageable very quickly in a room where you can't afford to have that kind of stage volume. So that is what we are seeing. He has actually taken a couple guitar amps, put them off stage, and put them in what would normally be called an isolation box. Now, they actually do make ISO boxes for amps to be put in. They're big wooden boxes with foam and all sorts of things and a microphone in there, very controlled environment. So it's off stage. You still get the sound of the real amplifier through everything out front, but you don't have to deal with that volume on stage. In this case, the whatever it takes portion is coming from the fact that it's not really a traditional isolation box. It's a shipping crate with what I'm guessing is probably a lot of acoustic treatment inside, surrounded by road cases to keep people from messing with what's going on in there. And it's in the loading dock. So one, if you're walking by this, you get a direct line to nothing else but what John Mayer is playing. And I'm going to be honest with you, if I was going to this show, if I could buy a ticket sitting right next to this crate for the whole night, I would do it because I am not a deadhead. I don't know the catalog very well. And you might be saying, well, how will you know what song they're playing? Oh, you'd be guessing like everyone's guessing in the comments here. And you know what? I would be. I would have no idea. But quite frankly, a lot of times, in the times I've seen Dead & Company, I don't know what song they're playing anyway. I'm just focused on John's playing, and this would make it that much easier. Nothing against the rest of the band. I love the rest of the band. All amazing musicians in their own right. But how cool would it be just to sit there for 3 hours and listen to nothing but John Mayer play? You could hear it in that clip. I mean, the tone is ridiculous. And the playing. My Lord, like if anybody, nobody watching this needs any more evidence as to how great John Mayer is. But I mean, when you listen to something like that, you really get a sense for how locked in, how dialed in John Mayer is when he's playing. So really cool. Now, what I don't know, here's what we don't know. And this is where Justin Jeske, John Mayer solos, maybe, but John Mayer gear, if you could chime in here or just on your own accounts, are the amps on stage dummies? Are they even on? Are they there for looks? And this is what we're actually hearing because John Mayer's back on in-ear monitors now. So when you're on in-ears, which here you go, here's mine paired right here. When you're on these things right here, it matters less what's happening on stage because the point of those is to block out everything that's happening on stage so you can control everything that you're hearing. But Mayer's back on in-ears. He famously went to those big over-the-ear headphones before, and then before that, I think it was just on traditional floor monitors. So I'm thinking it's a possibility that what you're seeing on stage as far as amps is not what you're hearing. Maybe. I'm curious. Let me know, guys. Like maybe it's kind of both. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Big amps are backstage, small combo like something like the Deluxe there is on stage. I don't know. Either way, it's really cool though. And it's funny because in such a technologically advanced venue, you've got a pretty low tech band. First of all, they're all very analog, with the exception of some of the drum space type stuff. They've got some really cool instruments back there. They're kind of futuristic, I suppose, but you kind of got a low tech. I mean, like, you've got guys who are just like using traditional gear. And then this is even funnier because you've got a makeshift like amp shanty, as Joe Bonamassa would call it, backstage in a loading dock. I would assume prior to seeing this that if you were playing at Sphere, they would have, built an amp ISO room there, and it's like some chic, ventilated, ultra quiet, area for an amp to be. And, because that's the other thing. These amps get hot when you play them and leave them on for a long time. So you can't just lock it in a box. You got to have a way to get air. And you could see even in the shipping container that he's got them in there, the lid is kind of propped up like a piano lid because you got to get some air in there. Particularly, I mean, you're in Vegas. It's 110 degrees there anyway. So not a great environment, to try to keep things cool in. But really cool. Here's the other fun thing about John Mayer. He knows that people obsess over his gear. He knows that. And he's on Reddit. He watches videos. Not like, listen, I'm not so arrogant to think that he's ever going to see this. I highly doubt that he ever will. But I know he's seen some of Justin's videos. I know he's aware of John Mayer Gear's Instagram account. I know that because how could you not be? How could you not be? You know, if he is, and also, by the way, that's why he like hides amps behind curtains. He blacks out pedals so people don't know what they are, so they can't go to Reverb and eBay and drive up the price once he decides to start using them. So it's really cool. And when he posts stuff like this, he knows who he's posting it for. He's posting it for all of us guitar nerds out there who want to know what's going on with all of this stuff. But I need to sing the praises of the John Mayer fan base. Here's what's really cool about you all. It's hard for me to include myself in this just because I play guitar and do this. So there's a lot of you who don't, but you are so interested about the stuff that he plays. And I've never seen another community of people in the last 40 years get excited that he brings back the Black One Strat, or, you know, talking about like, oh, I liked the Silver Sky era of like 2017 to 18, or, you know, whatever. I mean, like getting into gear stuff to where like, and you're not even guitar players, you're not even musicians, you're just so interested in what an artist does, and the tools that he uses have become so important in delivering what he does with his art, that the fan base has gone that deep also, which is really, really, really cool. It happens with other guitar players here and there, a little bit, but certainly not in this generation as much as it does, and as widely as it does with John Mayer. John Mayer spans, guitar nerds, pop music fans, heartthrob status. I mean, like he's all over the place. Comedians. I mean, like he's just runs the gamut with the number of people out there who listen to and appreciate what he does. But one of those themes that goes across all those different groups of people is the fact that they recognize the importance of certain pieces of gear, importance of certain guitars, and I think that's really, really cool. And that's why I trust you to find something like this interesting. So we're going to move to, as we do, the After Dinner Mint, which is the end portion of the show. For those of you who have watched or listened this far, I appreciate you very much. I appreciate you as much as those of you who have joined. Of course, I appreciate those of you who've joined the channel a little bit more because you are putting up money to do that. So I do appreciate that. And if that's something that interests you, please do that. If not, welcome to the After Dinner Mint. Of course, everyone's welcome here. Thank you for staying around for this. And what I want to talk about here is something you may have noticed on the channel. The astute viewer, if you were on YouTube watching this as opposed to just listening to it somewhere, is that there was merch for about like 5 days, and then there was no more merch. And it's coming. But here's the deal with the merch. And I'm not going to call out the on-demand print shop that I was using for the merch because it whatever, it doesn't matter. But it's limited on YouTube. There's only like 3 or 4 that you can choose from. But the problem was I ordered a sample of a shirt, and it just said Everything Mayer Podcast. And, it looked really cool when I designed it on their little designing tool. Very simple. And when I got it, the quality of this shirt was abysmal. First of all, the lettering wasn't centered, and I was like, oh my God, did I not center the titling? Like that seems like something I would not overlook, but okay. I went back and I looked, it's perfectly centered on the website that I designed it on. And so the printing was horrific. It was just all askew. The quality of the printing was pretty laughable. So I, in good faith and conscience, could not put that out for any of you to buy, and I'm happy to say no one bought it while it was up, thankfully. So, because I kind of soft launched it. Here's the deal, though. I'm going to find a different company because I have had a few people say, hey, how about some Everything Mayer merch? And it'd be a great way to support this channel as well. And also it'd be kind of cool is that if he starts touring again, if we all get these shirts and we kind of find each other at a show or something like that, that would be a lot of fun. That's down the road, though, because as we've talked about, we don't know when he's going to go back out on tour. So definitely not before August 10th, 2024, because that's how far the Sphere shows go. Sphere shows. So that's it. That's the big topic for the After Dinner Mint today, and I appreciate you sticking around for it. What else? The episode's a little bit late this week. Those of you who are listening this far will have probably noticed that it's a little bit late, and I apologize for that. But we're still getting it done this week. Still getting it done. I'm glad I waited, actually. I didn't do it on purpose, but I had other topics that I was going to cover, and then Mayor posted this isolation booth thing, which I found to be much more interesting and timely. So that's why we did that. I enjoy talking to myself and talking to you through this podcast, but we're going to be getting more guests on here very soon. And I hope I can share some of those details with you soon. I can't yet because one, they're not totally solidified. And two, I want to make a big announcement. And three, I'm kind of superstitious because I'm like, what if that doesn't happen? And I've already announced it. That's not going to be a good look for the show or the channel. But other than that, that's all I've got for you. What do you have for me? Leave a comment below. You're always so awesome about leaving comments, and I super appreciate that. So in the meantime, enjoy some Mayor tunes. I was just this week trying to convert someone who had they don't know anything about John Mayer. They just know Your Body's a Wonderland and that's it. And so I said, you know what? If you are that turned off by him, go listen to John Mayer Trio Try and tell me that he is not a guitar legend. And if you can only give me that, then that's fine. That's fine. More to follow on that person. Hopefully, I've convinced them, but we'll see. So until next time, I will see you. I'll see you around here on the internet somewhere. Premier Guitar, my channel, or here on Everything Mayor.